Thank you again for joining us at the first annual New York City Worker Cooperatives Conference. Woo! Okay. I know we have an important and growing movement of worker ownership, and I'm a proud member of the coalition that recently was able to work with the City Council to obtain $1.2 million in funding to expand our efforts. You're my kind of morning crowd. So we will definitely keep our remarks a little shorter than planned so that we can stay on the time frame outlined in the itinerary. We'll start the first programming event about 11:05, so just a couple of minutes over. And again, we appreciate your patience. And we welcome you. I'm going to bring Chris Michael to the stage. But before that, I wanted to kind of briefly give you a roadmap of what we plan for today. And the plan is to kind of give us an introduction to worker ownership, worker co-ops, union co-ops, both from a theoretical kind of philosophical perspective as well as from a grounded perspective. So the praxis, if you will. And then in the afternoon, we will talk about how our movements are joining together to create more momentum and force in terms of workers' rights, as well as how to scale worker ownership in the city and beyond. And as part of that process, we will have panels, and then we will also have breakout sessions that are outlined also in your conference program. Okay, I'm just looking to make sure I'm not speaking too fast. Okay. No? No one's hearing me? Oh, that's a first. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Let me see if I can. Actually, I don't really need to stand behind this podium.
It's the Spanish part, right? The translation. The translation. So the mic part. Okay.
So, we're good? We're good now? Okay, great. Good to work with a patient bunch. Okay, so I can, yeah, this is kind of overly formal, so it doesn't feel comfortable, but again, we want to welcome you. This is what it means to be in on the ground floor. That you actually work through some of this with us as we go, as we do in all of our work and struggle. And again, welcome. It's great to see you. We have a wonderful program planned. It'll be exciting. We are looking forward to learn as much from you as we hope to share our knowledge with you. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Chris. And just before I do that, I want to say there are a number of proclamations that will be presented today in honor of Worker Co-op Day, and in honor of your presence, and in honor of this conference. So welcome, everybody.
I hope everyone doesn't mind if I do keep it a little more formal. So first of all, I'd like to say Happy Worker Cooperative Day to everybody. And I'd like to thank, on behalf of the New York City Network of Worker Cooperatives, Professor Carmen Huertas Noble, as well as CUNY Law School and the CUNY Law CED Clinic for sponsoring today's event. So thanks to you guys. And as a plug, if anyone is interested in social justice lawyering, this is definitely the place to do it. Yeah. And I'd, of course, like to thank CUNY Law employees for being here on a Saturday. We've really been supported by them, and we're really appreciative. The New York City Network of Worker Cooperatives, or NYCNOC, we welcome you to this very exciting day that's happening on the back of some really stunning political achievements here in New York City. I just want to clarify and make sure that everyone understands our organization. We're a business association of the New York City metropolitan area worker cooperative businesses. And as a business association, our role is twofold. On the one hand, we are aiming to provide really terrific services directly to our business members. And on the other hand, we aim to improve business conditions overall in New York City for worker cooperative businesses. Now, today's conference, today's theme, is meant to connect the concept of economic democracy to economic and social justice. It's meant to demonstrate how democratizing our businesses, one employee, one vote, also allows our businesses to be expressive of our moral values. That workplace democracy turns each and every one of our corporations, our businesses, into moral vehicles. And that a worker cooperative economy creates a moral economy that is truly rooted in the feelings and values of the population at large, and not just that of the investor class. For this reason, our first panel will hear, during our first panel, we will hear from experienced worker cooperative developers, and they will describe in more detail not just the worker cooperative structure, but also how that structure facilitates moral action. And on our second panel, you will hear from experienced employee members of worker cooperatives. And they will describe how their worker cooperatives allow them to live out their moral values in a way that would be impossible through traditional employment. These are businesses that don't only function to provide an income stream or a living wage, but also work to support single mothers, to employ community members, to create safe working spaces for the LGBT community, to enhance, educate, and enrich in the lives of fellow employees. On the third panel, we're going to flip the conference on its head, and we're going to hear from committed social justice activists from the civil rights movement, the immigrants' rights movement, workers' rights movement, and others, and they will speak about how they feel workplace democracy and worker cooperative businesses support their work and their efforts and their social movements. The speakers on our fourth panel will discuss how we can bring the worker cooperative economy to scale, how we can dramatically expand the opportunities for democratic employee ownership so that one day perhaps workplace democracy can become a reality for millions of working Americans. And of course, we are very honored to have members of New York City Council who were essential to passage of the $1.2 million budget initiative and hopefully future budgets and legislation, speak about why they think workplace democracy is important and why they believe it's integral to the pursuit of economic equality in our city. Finally, throughout today, I hope that everyone personally takes the time in listening to all of these speakers to consider whether workplace democracy is something even more than an effective tool for the taming of the economy, for the promotion of our moral values, to consider whether there is something fundamentally unjust about our current system of employment, in which most human beings, you and me included, we actually rent ourselves. We literally rent our minds and our bodies to another set of human beings who happen to have wealth. And I hope that you might consider the extent to which you personally may or may not reject this system of renting human beings as undignified, as morally incoherent, and as constitutive of all sorts, all varieties of individual and social problems. And so to consider whether workplace democracy is not simply a tool for achievement of external moral aims, but whether workplace democracy ought to be a right unto itself. And with that, I'd like to turn over the floor to my Brendan Martin of the Working World, who has been essential in preparing the entire event and in thinking out how we can best present the concept of workplace democracy to everyone here today. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to use this microphone. It works. Hello? Great. And actually, could everyone just please give one more round of applause for Chris Michael before you do, because there's a chair for every one of you here. There's food out there. There's a conference happening. None of those things would be there if it wasn't for the tireless, endless work of Chris Michael. So please, one more time. Thank you, Chris. Bueno, okay. So I'm going to use this microphone and go back to being a little more informal, because the idea is we're all friends here. We're all colleagues here. There's a blurring of that in a worker cooperative. You have to work together. You have to speak together and communicate. So that's what we're going to try to do here. This isn't about creating more formality as much as it is about creating new relationships. So I want to ask a couple of questions. Who here works in a worker cooperative or with worker cooperatives or interested? Who here actually works with worker cooperatives or in a worker cooperative? How many hands in it? That's a lot of people in the room. Who here, how many of the rest of the people, who here knows more than 6 people in the room? Oh, you all got to invite me to your parties more. Wow. Who works in a cooperative itself, just in a cooperative? So look around, notice. There's a lot of people in a co-op. Who works in a cooperative development organization as a technical assistant? Okay, we got a lot of hands. So the reason I'm doing this, please actually take a good look at who's around you. Because this conference isn't just about having people up here speaking to you. This is about making the connections to everyone else in New York City who's working on worker cooperatives. I've been working with worker cooperatives for a decade now. I lived in Argentina for 7 years where I worked with them, worked as part of a team who started technical assistance for worker cooperatives in Nicaragua and now in the United States for a few years. And often people in worker cooperatives, you can feel very isolated. You have problems that you're struggling to figure out how to get through, and there may be someone just down the street who has the same problems and maybe has some solutions. And all those solutions are in this room. So please take advantage of lunch. That networking time is one of the most important you have. Meet the other cooperatives, meet the other cooperative technicians, find each other so that when you leave this conference, it's not over, it's the beginning. This room is full of New York City worker cooperators, and you're not alone. So when you leave this door, you should leave with about a dozen phone numbers. You should leave with a couple meetings planned. You should leave with like the idea of visiting other workspaces, talking about what's not working, talking about what's hard, talking about how to resolve them. This isn't just about celebrating us. This is about overcoming real problems. So please take a chance to meet each other and bring this conference to the next level. So we're here to talk about economic justice, workplace democracy as a gateway to economic justice. And as Chris said today, we're going to go through a succession of panels that will help to tie this together. Worker cooperatives as real contestation in our economy to create real opportunity. Opportunity in the United States of America has actually been declining. And it's the people in this room who are creating a new form of opportunity for the United States, that are creating the next wave of opportunity, the next kind of work. Rather than work continuing to diminish, which is what's happened to wages in this country, to continue to expand it. To what are the opportunities? To allow people to be agents of the economy, of their own lives. And that's what we're here to talk about and to learn more about. So I'm going to introduce the next panel in a moment. Actually, I'd like to bring people up for the next panel. We're going to answer this question of, okay, fine, economic justice, agency, making people into more than they were, but what is a worker cooperative? How does a worker cooperative actually get to this? What is this thing? This isn't just a set of principles. This is a set of techniques and real value. So I'd like to bring up the first set of panelists. We have Omar Freya from Green Worker Cooperatives. Please give a round of applause. We're all friends here. Thank you, sir. We have Karen Haskins from the Working World. I know her. And then Emma Yora Emma Yora. Emma Yora. There she is. No. Emma Yora from the Center for Family Life. So as they assemble on the stage, we're going to actually do a quick exercise.
Brandon, sorry, excuse me. Are you going to announce the workshops?
Yes,
The other
so,
workshops?
right, thank you very much. Nice use of the microphone there, sneaky. You have a button there, don't use it. No, this is democracy. So we obviously are behind schedule on purpose because we know sometimes people like to roll in late on a Saturday morning. But so there was other programming going on at the same time as the main auditorium that supposedly was going to start at 11. It's not going to start until now when this panel begins. Jessica is going to be leading a panel on the Madison principles. It's up on the 3rd floor. So anyone who wanted to go to that, you didn't miss anything, you can follow Jessica and learn about the Madison principles of worker cooperatives. David Hammer might have already headed up. He already went up there. He's going to be talking about internal capital accounts, right? Yes. So there's anyone who that was on their agenda to go to. You advanced people, I guess. Just go, you can go up there. You didn't miss anything. But don't too many of you leave. Okay, so as we assemble up here, real quick, what I'd like you to do is to turn around and find someone in the audience you don't know right now. And then in about 30 seconds, tell them why you're here and what you're hoping to get out of this conference. And then turn around and have them do the same to you. So find someone you don't know. If you know everyone around you, you have to move a little. You might have to caminar un poquito. Say por dónde. So find someone. You have 30 seconds. I'm timing you. So this one, you click it on. Right, audience feels energetic. And you're going to go in the middle, so we have you in order? Okay, cool. And we're not reading the bios first, so feel free to give a little bit of your bio. You can, you have a clock, you can see 5 minutes, but if you end up taking a little bit more and just have less time for Q&A, that's okay. We purposely time the talk slow, so just see how it goes, see what feels right. You can also end at 3 minutes, you can go to 10. That's 3 to 10.
Definitely won't be going more than 5 or 4.
Okay, now you're going to have to switch. Let the other person have a chance to talk. This is good. We're saving time. Still good? Yeah, only 13 minutes since you began. So that was your 10, and I was supposed to 10, so that's we're doing it Yeah. And we'll just catch up. I like it. Perfect. Look at all that lively. Hey, because of these microphone thing, we don't have to have people chase around. Yeah, that's right. Fucking awesome. Jessica on that thing, hitting the button. Okay, everyone got a chance to share with a neighbor? Did you guys know each other? Ustedes se conocen entre ustedes, ¿no? Oh, perfect. Excellent, excellent. Well then, so we're going to ask, there's a couple of people from the audience, there's 3 from the audience who feel, hello? Hello? Oh, that's good. I like all the conversation. Por favor. Ya estamos. Che. I gotta throw in the Argentinian. Bueno, okay. I noticed it's all Spanish speakers. Por favor, amigas y amigos. Okay, so we're gonna have just 2 or 3. Yeah, thank you. We win. Excelente. That was very good use of cooperative technique right here. She's like, clap, make everyone shut up. It'll work. That was really good. Thank you. So just 2 or 3 people from the audience to share what they learned, what their neighbor is hoping to get out. Really quick, just a couple of points, what your neighbor was hoping and what you and your neighbor decided you were hoping to get from this conference. Who feels ready to share that? We got 1. We need 2 more. 2. Come on, one of you guys. Okay. You want to go first with 1, 2, and 3? You ready? You can. So hit the red button, or that turns red rather, and then you can speak.
I was sharing with my partner in here. She said she's here to learn more about cooperative because she doesn't have any cooperative right now, and me neither. and we are here to learn.
Okay.
And we are
Excellent. So you guys
comfortable with
you're
the
not part of a cooperative yet, don't know, so you're here to
not
learn
right
from the
now,
beginning.
But I want.
Okay. Excellent. Great. Thanks for coming. Welcome. And what are your names?
Perez Guadalupe.
Perez Guadalupe and Stephanie. Okay, great. So from the back, please.
Yes, I am Ethan Felder. I am an attorney at Citibank, and I was speaking with Fernanda here, and we come from very traditional employment settings. She from an accounting firm, me from a bank, and we're here to learn much more about the worker cooperative model, and a lot of what the first speaker was saying about the values in the workplaces that we come from are so divergent from the values that we hold outside of the workplace, and the idea of renting ourselves out and our minds out for the 8 to 5 day that we do is so apt and true, and really speaks to why this movement is so important and why we're interested in being here today.
Excellent. Great. Thank you, Ethan. Please. Great. So a lot of people here to learn from the beginning. That's great. And it sounds like we're already doing a little bit of a good job. So I also called on in the back. So you press your button on your microphone, and then just pull it towards you and speak into it, please.
Hi, Cecilia Gaston. I'm the Executive Director of the Violence Intervention Program. And I had a conversation with Sean Damas, who works in the private sector and is very enticed about the cooperative ideas and how he can do a transition into this kind of world and these kind of values.
Fantastic. Wow. Okay, great. Give everyone a round of applause. Thank you. Okay, so this is a good panel because there's a lot of questions for people just being introduced to worker cooperatives. So this panel is, what is a worker cooperative? And we have 3 very experienced people up here to start talking about that. So I'm going to shut up and pass the microphone first over to Omar Freya, who's going to give the intro.
So I'll stand. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for being out here today. My name is Omar Freya, and I'm the founder and coordinator of an organization based in the Bronx here in New York City called Green Worker Cooperatives. And so we work with people who have ideas, who want to start cooperatives to help to make them happen. So I'd love to talk to the 2 of you in the front and anybody else who has ideas who want to start a co-op. Just by a show of hands, who wants to start a co-op? Who's in that? Excellent. All right. So you're in the right place. So this is about what is a worker cooperative. So I'm just going to give the very basic overview of what a worker cooperative is and what it is not. And then my colleagues here are going to share what is its impact and the benefits on in the areas of the economy and in areas of just your social human relationships. So I can say quickly what is a worker co-op in about 10 seconds. A worker cooperative is a business that is owned by its workers. That's it, period, yeah. That's all it is. It's not any more complicated than that. I can add a little more complication. I can say it's a business that's owned and controlled by its workers. But at the end of the day, it's that it's owned by its workers. And that's really it. Ownership is important to understand. Ownership gives you 2 rights. You have 2 rights as the owner of a business. You have a right to the profits of the business, and you have a right to make decisions in the business. So when you own something, you own it fully. So a worker cooperative is not a business that's a little bit owned and controlled by its workers. It's owned and controlled by its workers, plain and simple. That's it. And what that means is that for any other kind of business, any other business that's out there, you have workers who do not own and control that business. And that means that the people who are making decisions about that business have other interests because they come with other interests. If you own something, you are the one who makes decisions about it. You are the one who has a say, and each and every single one of us has our own interests. You might be a parent. You might you live in a certain neighborhood. You live in the area where the business is located. Whatever those interests are, you have environmental interests. You have maybe whatever it is, but you have particular interests. And every business is owned by somebody or bodies, some people with a set of interests. So a worker cooperative is owned and controlled by the people who are actually working there, and they bring their own interests as workers. If you live in a neighborhood where the business is located and you work there, you own the business, then that business reflects the interests of you as a resident of that community, as a worker, and all of the things that you bring to that. So I'll leave that at that and add that our organization at Green Worker Cooperatives, we support people who have ideas for a business. It was mentioned earlier, and I'll just add this as a potential when we talk about what are the kinds of businesses. Worker cooperatives are in every sector. So whatever industry, whatever business you're thinking about, a worker cooperative can be that. We have cleaning cooperatives, there are manufacturing cooperatives, there are every kind of service industry. There's different variety of manufacturing businesses, all of them, whether it's cleaning, whether it's producing microscope lenses, whether it's walking dogs, whether it's cooking food, whatever it is, there's a business for it, there's a cooperative for it, you know, and so anyone can do that. And just as one potential, and this is my own self-interest as a parent here, we know that there's no childcare and there isn't childcare here, so if anybody has any childcare experience and you're thinking about a childcare co-op, then that's one potential. You know, so that we can have, in conferences, we can have people doing the same kind of work that Caracol Interpreters Cooperative has been doing and what they've done for translation, you know, to really create that kind of opportunity. So there's an opportunity for anything and everything, and you're going to hear more from my colleagues here.
Hello, how's everyone this morning? Good. My name is Karen Haskins, and I work for the Working World here in New York, along with Brendan and formerly with Emma as well. We're a big happy family here in the co-op world. The Working World is an organization. We have a loan fund for worker cooperatives. And as Brendan mentioned, we started in Argentina, and then in Nicaragua, which is where I worked for about 3 years. And now we have an office here in New York. So Omar gave you a very great introduction of what a worker cooperative is. It can get really intricate and detailed, and there are other workshops for that. We're gonna keep it pretty basic here. And what I wanna do is give you some of the examples that I've seen in my work, working for the Working World in Nicaragua and here also in the States, of how it's different. Because, you know, okay, it's owned by its workers, so, okay, let's maybe hear a real life example and see what that really means. One example that I wanted to give, in Nicaragua, we worked with a cooperative, a honey producing cooperative. They now have about 15 members, and they do everything from the harvesting to the bottling and then also the marketing. So they've kind of cut out the middleman and are also selling directly to grocery stores and retail stores. And almost every year it's become pretty common that at Christmas time, the Nicaraguan government wants to make a large order from this particular cooperative and include these bottles of honey in their gift baskets for their employees. It's a little something they like to do in Nicaragua with Christmas baskets. So, but anyways, this order was, you know, 3 or 4 times what they normally produced in a year. So they were, all of December, they were extremely busy and producing a lot. And at the end of it, they had all this money. And this was an opportunity as a democratic business where they could decide what to do with that profit. It didn't all go to the boss. There was no boss. There was 15 bosses. So by their democratic decision-making process where everyone votes, they said, do we want to reinvest this in our business? What are the needs of our business right now? And there were years when they did that. There were years when they decided they wanted to invest in more hives. They wanted to invest in reconditioning their processing plant. There were needs for the business. And there were years when they decided that they wanted to take most of that or some of that as a distribution and distribute it to the cooperative members. So in that case, they're making that decision, right? As a cooperative member, you get to decide kind of the economic future of your business. You are the protagonist in the economic life of your business, which is different, right, from a normal business where you have management or in a small business, one boss kind of making those decisions, and as a worker, you don't really have a say. So that's kind of a difference with when you have profits, you get to decide what to do with them. Another cooperative we work with, and we have lent to, is a Windows factory in Chicago called New Era Windows. And, you know, another one of these examples where in a normal business, this decision would have probably been made quite differently. But at the beginning, when they were just starting out as a cooperative and just starting to produce Windows, some of those cooperative members, workers in the Windows factory, were also receiving unemployment benefits, because what had happened was that their former employer had laid them off. And so that's kind of the background of the Windows factory, is that the Windows factory was closing. All the employees were going to be laid off. And so with, you know, with our loan fund and our technical support from the working world, we were able to help them buy their own business, buy their Windows factory, and convert it into a worker cooperative. But anyway, so getting back to, you know, one of these hard decisions about your economic life in your own business. So some of the workers were making unemployment benefits and some were not. So when they started producing Windows and for the first time had some income and had to decide how to distribute it, they actually voted and made the decision together to distribute it unequally so that the people who weren't getting the unemployment benefits could be bumped up and make the same level as everyone else. So you can see that you can take into account the workers themselves. They're people, right? They're not just a number. They're not just a machine. They're people and they have needs. And I think, you know, worker cooperative is a place where those needs can really be met through democratic decision making and being able to be in charge of the finances or the economy of these businesses. I think I'm going to pass it off to Emma now.
Hello, my name is Emma Yora. I work at the Center for Family Life in Sunset Park. I also used to work in the working world in Nicaragua. And before I get started on, you know, kind of looking a little bit more at the social and the governance side of what does it mean to be a worker co-op, I want to make a little plug that we are doing a class with Small Business Solutions in New York City, and I think Omar is also doing some classes with them, and I have a flyer. Sorry. Oh, slow down. Thank you. So I have a flyer that I'll leave up here on the stage if anyone's interested in learning more about what is a co-op and how to start one. We're going to be doing a class more in depth on those topics, and I'm happy to talk about that later. So I just want to make sure I didn't forget that. So yeah, I wanted to talk about, you know, I think, again, Omar did a great job laying out a great definition of what is a worker co-op. It's a business owned by its workers, and as he said, that means it's also a business controlled by its workers. So what does it mean to be a business controlled by its workers? I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And as some background, at the Center for Family Life, we're based in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, which is a mostly immigrant community. And it's a social service agency that's been around for over 30 years, 35 years, and about 8 years got into co-op development as a way of developing alternative workplace solutions for people who are working in the informal economy. So we started making co-ops with mostly Latina women, doing the first co-op is a cleaning co-op. We have a childcare co-op that we would love to consult with anyone else who wants to do a childcare co-op, because there's definitely the need for a lot more of those. Right? so we work with a variety of co-ops there, with about 143 worker owners in total. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about, what does it actually mean to be a business controlled by its workers? Because essentially, I think it means that there's a lot of benefits, but there's also more responsibilities than you would see in a traditional workforce. So to kind of illustrate some of those benefits, I wanted to bring an example of one of the co-ops that we work with, which is Golden Steps Elder Care Cooperative, which does provides elder care companion services to people in the 5 boroughs. So, someone who has maybe an aging relative can hire the co-op to come and take care of that relative. And it's interesting because this is kind of something you could contrast to a lot of home care agencies which exist. And one of the things that we've seen is just, much better pay compared to an agency. Like most home health aides going into an agency can make minimum wage or $8 or $9 an hour, whereas in the co-op, the members are making $16 an hour. So, just first and foremost, kind of flipping the economic equation on its head is one of the impacts. And also just better conditions, like in a home health agency, because the wages are so low, most of the workers tend to have to work a lot of hours to make enough money to support themselves. So, they're very tired, they're kind of burnt out, and that can create, hard conditions working with their clients. It's an incredibly hard job to do, and so by getting the better pay, they're also able to provide better service because they're not having to work kind of these crazy hours. Another co-op that we work with is Si Se Puede Cleaning Cooperative. And some of the benefits that they've been able to see, it's a really great cooperative. They've been around since 2007. They have 64 members. And one of the things they talk about a lot, in addition to the pay being better, is also having the ability to control their own hours. When you have a boss, your boss usually gets to tell you what your schedule is. But when you are in a co-op, you get to say, look, I'm available on these days I need to pick up my daughter after school, or you're in a management position, and you're able to say what you want the work conditions to look like. Another of the benefits that we've seen are more human development. Like in a lot of companies, especially in Nicaragua, we saw in the free trade zones, you're really just a commodity. Like they don't really care if you're learning and you're getting trained and you're getting better at doing your job, or you're expanding into new, places. You're just kind of there to do your job. But in a co-op, since you are a worker owner, the focus is more on you. And so we see a lot more leadership development in the co-op. A lot of the women who came into the co-op don't have a very high formal education level, but they are now managing, businesses with over $1 million in revenue a year. So it's kind of this amazing leadership experience. And this has also been true kind of, seeing the kids of some of the co-op members and watching them see their moms, going to these meetings, running these businesses, making these decisions, I think is very inspirational, and really shows them that they can also, be an agent in their own lives. But also I want to kind of end with a little bit of a note of caution. It also means more responsibility. If you're a worker owner, you have to be worrying about quality control. You have to be worrying about who's doing the marketing, who's doing the administration, and you have to be making decisions together. So, you're getting more, but you're also giving more. You're participating more in every way. And that's all I got.
Great. Thank you so much, Omar, Karen, and Emma. Okay, so we've caught up a little bit of time. We're going to take until noon to finish the panel, which means we have about 20 minutes for Q&A. So I'm going to start seeing, maybe people have a little bit of a sense now what a worker cooperative is, a little more than they used to. Okay, good. I see there's already some questions. So people you have questions in the audience? I saw you there. I saw you there. Do you want to hit your button and then go ahead?
Can you talk a little bit about the governance structure of a co-op?
Sure, and can you, when you ask your question, if you want to say your name, because we're all trying to get to know each other, and if you work somewhere, and also if there's anyone in particular you want to direct the question to, or if you want to leave it open for the whole panel, that's fine too. So please, once again.
Anyone can answer it. I'm Afreen Alam from National Urban League.
Thank you. You guys can all answer. You got it. Everyone put us in.
I mean, I think it's great because it really, Brendan said there's a lot of really great experience up here. And I think one of the great things about worker co-ops is it's not just kind of one model. There's a lot of different ways to do it. The co-ops that we work with in Sunset Park use a governance structure that's like relatively unique and not used that often around in other places. But they use something called a marketing referral model where the members are actually contracting directly with the clients, and then they're paying membership dues back into the co-op. And this is a model that has some benefits because it's relatively easy to administer. So it can be a great kind of way for people without a lot of administrative experience to start a business because most of the money is going right to the member as opposed to into the co-op. It has its pros and cons. But in terms of, then the actual decision-making kind of governance style. The co-ops that we work with tend to meet at least once or twice a month on a regular basis with the entire membership, and then they have committees. So they don't have like a formal board structure, but that's also another option that a lot of co-ops use. So there's, again, a lot of answers to that question.
Great. Omar, Karen, you guys want to?
Sure. I'll just touch on, when you're a smaller co-op, a lot of times you only have 5 or 6 people. You'll get everyone involved in a decision-making process. You can, do a majority, a supermajority, like 3/4, or you could also use consensus in trying to make that decision-making. But I mean, the smaller it is, usually more of the cooperative members are involved with more of the decisions, and then as you grow bigger, you'll have different committees that and kind of delegate those responsibilities and decisions, and have your board of directors making decisions, and maybe also committees. But it just a lot of times starting out, the easiest way is just to do. Most cooperatives just are involved in a lot of the decisions.
And I'll just add another twist on that also, is that there is certainly a range in decision making, and that range usually looks like, on the one end, you've got more of a complete, say, flat organizational structure, no hierarchy, decision making by consensus, operating in committees to do other kinds of work, but whole group makes certain types of decisions. And on the other end, you've got a structure that looks more like what you think of when you think of traditional management in a corporation, where you've got your CEO, you've got managers, and then you've got the rest of the staff. And so you have ranges in between there. But even on the end of having a CEO with the managers and staff, it's the whole organization that's responsible. Everyone has a vote in who the board of directors are. So it's what could traditionally be considered the people at the bottom they have a say in who is the person who's considered traditionally the person at the top. So it's really everyone in the organization who's still the boss. They're just all the boss together.
Great, yeah. And just to say really quickly, so of course, co-ops aren't magic that just happens easy. They're called worker cooperatives. They take a lot of work. And so they point out there's a lot of models here. If you're starting a co-op or want to start one, thinking about your governance is one of the most important things, and it's complicated. And talking with the co-op technicians or amongst each other about what that means, how you will govern, looking out there for the models is really important to do. It doesn't unfold like magic. It takes real thought, and it's worth thinking about. So thanks for the question. There was a question over here.
Hi, I'm Maureen. I wanted to know if there were examples of cooperatives where there wasn't a particular focus on the type of service provided, but the model was used to link people who have distinct skills but wanted to work together in this model to kind of form a package of services. So for example, not only childcare, but within a cooperative, one person who was experienced with childcare, one person who was experienced with translation, one person who was experienced with organizing, but still wanted to share the decision making and their profits. I don't know if that's been done, and I'm asking if it has, or what your initial reaction to that idea is.
Adios.
Could have just turned to my right. Oh, I'm still on.
Everyone's here.
So I was just saying, like, basically, you can make a co-op out of anything that makes sense as a business. So if you can think of a business idea where you have childcare and translation and, you know, other kinds of services together under one business name, you know, with kind of one, like, yeah, one brand or whatever, then yes, you can also make that work as a co-op. You know, beyond that, I think the businesses or the co-ops that I tend to see work well, or the businesses I tend to see work well, you know, kind of focus on one thing because you need to get really good at doing one thing in order to be able to like attract clients to buy that. But.
I mean, I was just going to say also, for worker cooperatives, you're typically one business. There are other types of cooperatives, like producer cooperatives. You might be separate businesses, but you come together just to, say, bring your goods to market. You could cooperatively own a workspace and share, say, back office, but have different businesses, because it sounds like it's sort of maybe different businesses, but share some resources. There are ways to cooperatively do a lot of things that are not just worker cooperatives, so there are options in there. And some co-working spaces are owned by the people who are there, and they're membership owned, and they're cooperative co-working spaces. So there's often a cooperative solution for everything. That doesn't mean it'll turn out to be a good business, though. That's a harder. So, okay, I didn't take stack. We've had lots of questions. We'll take one up front, and then put your hand in the air if you had a question so I can like get a sense. So you had one, and then 2, and then 3, and 4, and 5. So that's the 5 for right now. Okay, please. And please say your name and if you're part of a cooperative or where you're from.
Buenos días. Mi nombre es Casilda Maldonado. Necesito traducción. Vengo de Ecomundo. Con respecto a la pregunta que hizo la joven de las cooperativas, si podían haber diferentes tipos de cooperativas en una sola. En Chicago dieron un tema, y yo estuve presente, de las cooperativas multiactivas. Ahí es que encaja lo que ella pregunta. Y mi pregunta a la señorita Karen, ¿cuáles son los requisitos para solicitar un préstamo? Gracias.
Perdón, no escuché tu nombre. Casilda, perdón. So with respect to the question that was asked around cooperatives that have different types of work inside a cooperative, I went to a conference in Chicago where they had a conversation around multi-activity or multitask cooperatives. And to Karen, Miss Karen, I wanted to ask a question around what are the requirements for getting or attaining a loan?
Sí, ese taller sobre los cooperativas multiactivistas, no sé cómo se dice, es muy buen punto y es un buen modelo para que la gente sepa que hay un modelo, yo lo he visto usar más que nada en cooperativas como por ejemplo de comida, como Park Slope Food Co-op, por ejemplo, donde tienen diferentes clases de miembros. Entonces tienes un clase que son, por ejemplo, consumidores, otro clase que son, por ejemplo, los trabajadores, hasta puedes tener otro clase que son los productores, de lo cual compras los productos. Entonces sí, eso es un buen modelo para ver. Y si alguien quiere más información sobre eso, podemos hablar después quizá.
So yes, this point of multi-active cooperatives is really good point, and there's really good models. A cooperative that I've seen that kind of works in that same realm is food co-ops, or co-ops that deal with food, like Park Slope Food Co-op, in which they have different classes of members. So we have members who are consumers, members who are workers, members who are producers. So it's a really good idea, and if anyone wants to talk to me later, that would be great.
Bueno, sorry, is it easier for me to English or Spanish? English? Okay. So we have a pretty unique form of financing. We're not a bank, so we don't do credit checks and we don't ask for collateral or personal guarantees. We ask that you operate your business democratically, so you're a co-op, and that you have a business plan that makes sense. So those are really, if Brendan has anything to add, but we won't invest in something, we won't take that risk and lend the money if we think that you're gonna fail. Because you don't wanna fail, and we don't want you to fail, right? We all want the business to succeed and grow. So there's a lot of work on the front end of that loan to see and make sure that it will be a profitable project. Whether it's starting a business, which is a lot riskier, or just investing in a machine or some translation equipment or something for an already existing cooperative.
Great, thank you. This is great. We have a lot of questions, so I'm going to try to get through them all because, yeah, we're supposed to end shortly. So, do you guys remember there was 2, 3, 4, and 5? You were 2? Okay, thank you. And name and place, affiliation. Oh, 2? Who was 2? You were 2?
Hi, Brendan. My name is Carmen. We met before. Yes. Besides teaching ethical fashion, it's sustainable principles in the design process for designers. I see many students graduating and there are no jobs, and I see this as the future for young students with all these skills that they can join forces. So I think you should be speaking to schools as well, because they are like stopping their relationship once they graduate, and there's this lack of support. But yeah, thank you. It's inspiring. Thank you. It was not a question.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Well, Mondragon did start with a school, an academy, so it's a good idea. So please, number 3.
My name is Jonathan. I work with the East Bay Community Law Center in Oakland, California. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about what the original source of capital was for the working world, and what the size of the corpus of the fund is right now, how much money you have to work with. And also, what are some other sources of capital for worker cooperatives in New York City?
So I'll try to answer quickly. So we both work at the Working World. There's also a couple of people in the audience who do. So the Working World funds, the initial funds came out of my pocket, which is why they weren't very big. But one of the things we discovered, we were working in Argentina, was that a small amount of money invested well is a lot more important than tons of money. You get money, it's very easy to spend it. And often that's what a bank wants you to do, because then you're in debt. Whereas turning cash into productive capital is a lot harder. The money is the easiest part of that. Making that plan and then taking and using it, going to work every day, it's the labor. This is why the workers should be in charge, because the work is the hardest part, not the capital. Why capital's in charge is just, we won't go into why. But at any rate, so we had a small amount of money. We had much smaller than other funds that existed in Argentina at the time, but yet loaned, I'd say many more times, except they loaned 0 times, so it's not even just many more. They would talk to the exact same cooperatives and never did it. There was a lot of political issues. So being on the ground and having a nimble team ready to invest the money mattered a lot more. $10,000 spent well was really effective. It has grown. We have a couple $1 million in our fund now. The United States, of course, things are much more expensive than they were in Argentina at the time. There are other cooperative loan funds. There's the Cooperative Loan Fund of New England, the North Country Development Fund. There's your local bank. There's crowdfunding. But if they're on the NCNOC website, there's a list of financial resources for worker cooperatives. I would recommend you be careful. It can sometimes, because we're going into this work because we lack resources. So it feels like getting the resources is all that's going to matter. Once I get that loan, everything's going to be great, and then you're going to find you have debt. So really listening to what Karen said, it's about making that plan, and then it's no good when you don't have the money when you made the plan. You have to have the money there. It's the water. But the water doesn't grow anything. It's the DNA, that magic, the seeds that make things happen, and that's you, and that's your business plan. Without the water, you won't grow. But just getting water, you're just going to drown if you don't really have that business plan together. So. And one of the things that Karen was saying, if you don't have that business plan, we don't shut the door. We help you develop a business plan. We obviously have limited resources, so we need you to meet us at least halfway. But there, thanks. Did you want to say
I'd just like to add, outside of the traditional route of getting a loan, there are also other ways of raising funds and what's known as bootstrapping a business. If you don't have significant capital, one of those certainly now that's becoming much more of an opportunity is crowdfunding. Crowdfunding for a business, so using online resources to raise money from your community. I know one business, not a cooperative, in Harlem, a vegan restaurant that just recently opened up that raised about $23,000 through crowdfunding, setting up a Kickstarter campaign. And the advantage of that is that they were actually able to raise money locally within their community, which as a restaurant is even more critical because they rely on local support. So that's one other opportunity. Another opportunity that the folks at Caracol Interpreters Cooperative did was bartering their butts off. They were amazing at bartering and basically tapped every single person that they knew to get resources in exchange for other things. So bartering your way to those initial years, is also helpful.
Great, thank you. So we had the fourth person up in the line. Were you the fourth, or is that a new hand?
I was the fourth.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I also had a question about funding.
Your name, please? Sorry.
My name is Joaquin Padilla. I'm from Austin, Texas. I've had friends that were parts of several different types of worker-owner cooperatives. One being Recycling Cooperative, Ecology Action. It's been around for like over 10 years. But that was my first experience with it. And what I noticed with my friends who were involved in this cooperative was that anytime they needed more money to get a new piece of machinery or to hire more or whatever else it was, and so they had to get a loan, only one person's name could be on that loan. So yeah, they had 10 people as part of the cooperative, but they couldn't let 3 people also sign in on that loan. So it made it to where, like, if there was ever a point of dissolution where one person said, you know what, I want to go travel the world now, you guys run the cooperative, it made it really difficult when you have this one person signed on for this loan to this financial institution. So I want to know, is there anything happening in regards to like regulation or how cooperatives are going to be taxed and considered in regards to receiving financial services here in New York or anywhere else in the country? I know California and Berkeley and Oakland and San Francisco are a little bit ahead of us on that tip, but is there anything happening here where, yeah, it's work like that is being lobbied or any sort of regulation is being worked towards?
As part of the New York City budget that just passed, there was also a policy paper that included of recommendations for New York City and New York State that included some of the issues you're talking about, which are very difficult issues. Normal large corporations, they don't have to have a person sign. The corporation signs. That is often precluded from smaller cooperatives, partly because the banks don't trust cooperatives. They think that's strange. I want your butt on the line. It's like, yeah, but it's not my butt. It's all our butts. So what are we going to do? So that's a real big problem for cooperatives. That is one of the things that's being pushed in the legislation. We're also working to get around it. The Working World works with the Lower East Side People's Federal Credit Union, a pilot project, where we end up being the one to sign and putting up the personal guarantees for them to get around those regulations that they need in order to give loans. So the idea of also not only waiting for policy to change, but making that policy ourselves is one of the solutions we're trying to put together. And there was number 5, and then we can go to new people, which you can be number 6. Because we have like 5 minutes left. Yes, you were 5.
Hi, my name is Sean. I'm from Macy's. I work in Southeast Queens. So my question is in regards to the application of the theory in terms of the governance. Like, what mechanisms work in order to like resolve disputes among owners? Like, I'm curious about that.
Talking. Lots of talking. And a facilitator, a mediator. Those 2 things. But yeah, that's the short answer. Conflict is inevitable. There will always be conflict. It's how you manage the conflict that will make or break you as a co-op. In a traditional business, the traditional shareholder structure or just a structure where there's an owner that is not you, you always have the advantage, or you consider it a disadvantage, that you can always just deflect and be passive you know, say traditional businesses allow for passive aggressive behavior. So people's reactions are normally, you know, complain to the boss to get, you know, your coworker fired. Or if you have a boss and the boss is the problem, quit. If that's not an option, suffer. And that is life in the United States of America. So co-ops provide a different opportunity, but it requires a different level of engagement within each other. And you know, one of the more, I'd say, one of the side effects of the capitalist form of ownership, what we consider traditional form of ownership, is that it breaks these kinds of human relationships. And a co-op actually brings people together. So it forces us to develop that skill of being able to communicate with each other and work out our conflicts. I like to say it makes for better marriages too.
I would also agree with everything Omar said and say that it's very important to develop protocols that everyone agrees on. And that way it's not just like, I don't like you, so I'm picking on you. It's like, hey, you broke our protocol, you know, and like that way you have really clear things. So having really clear standards of what is the quality of our service or what is the quality of our product, you know, having accountability measures to hold people to that. Having evaluation systems seems like it's an important piece. Like it's a complex kind of ecosystem that you can build to, I think, reduce conflict and prevent conflict. But I think it's also true that anytime you have to make a lot of decisions, you know, people are going to have different opinions, and some level of conflict is natural, and it's actually healthy because you can get, ideally, all the best ideas that everyone has and pull them together.
Yeah, I think I just want to reiterate, cooperatives focus on people, and every person has a different idea, opinion, personality, and so bringing that all together in a business, just like any part of life, like Omar said, marriage, is going to cause disagreements, and but cooperatives are just a more just way of getting through those problems. Also, another thing, you might see people leave your co-op, then they might come back. I think we've seen it in every country we've worked in, that conflict can get that bad, and that you think that it's, you know, it's all falling apart and someone leaves, and then 2 weeks later they're back in the co-op. So people tend to find a way to work through things.
Yeah, and this is such a good question that I got to chime in too, because it's such the heart of, you know, that like Omar said, in normal businesses, you just have to bottle it up. There's plenty of reason for conflict, but you don't get to express it. And co-ops give you that chance to express it. It's like cooperatives, providing the opportunity for conflict since 1869. Like, but you know, also have to remember that normal corporations are full of conflict. And most workers don't get a chance to be part of that. In the shareholder rooms, you know, the number of lawsuits, the amount of conflict that happens, and yet those businesses still work. We are still dominated by shareholder businesses, despite the unbelievable amount of lawsuits and the number and money spent on lawyers to work out those fights. And sometimes in cooperatives, people come in and think, oh, now it's a cooperative, everything's gonna be perfect, because now we're finally past all that stuff. No, not at all. You're finally freed to fight, and there's gonna be conflict, but yet it can work. If you came in this room thinking that co-ops are just gonna answer everything, just like I said, this is where it starts. That's where it starts. You're finally free to fight it out. You're gonna have conflict, and that can work, and that's okay, and that's when it begins, and it's the hard work of really making it happen. It's not a magic solution, it's a platform for you to actually get the work done. So, you know, that's to keep in mind for those who are interested in starting co-ops. Expect, you know, oh, when's my first fight gonna happen? Probably the first day. Anyway, so there was another question up here, and I think this has to be the last question, unless someone's burning.
My name is Stephanie Sorzano, and my question is, if you have a group like of 3 people and they're in this, they build a co-op and they are trying to register their business, the legal aspect of it, you're saying, I'm trying to figure out, can you register your business as a corporation or you can't?
So there are a number of different ways that you can register a business that is going to operate as a worker cooperative. There are a number of options that are available. It could be a limited liability company. It could be a cooperative corporation. Those are the two most common types. New York State does have a cooperative corporation statute. that allows for people to register a business as what is known as a cooperative, where you can actually use the name cooperative in your title. Most cooperatives in the United States, worker cooperatives, are set up as limited liability companies. And that's really because LLCs, or limited liability companies, are the most flexible in terms of their structure. So you can really set it up any number of different ways. What's really important is what is described in the bylaws of the business. So it doesn't really matter so much, whether there's an Inc. or LLC or co-op at the end of the name. What matters really is what's in your bylaws. How are decisions going to be made? How are profits going to be distributed? Those two rights of ownership that I mentioned earlier, the right to profits and the right to make decisions. So that's really what's important. And there are a number of lawyers in New York City now. A new one over in the corner. And others, Urban Justice Center, CUNY School of Law, that have experience in worker cooperatives and will help you in forming them.
Okay, so I'm really sorry at the end there. I know there's more questions, but you've got 3 more panels. You have 3 more panels in which there'll be Q&A. So just sneak your question in those other panels, because what we're going to do right now is take a 10-minute break, just 10, it's not 15. The next panel, you're going to hear from people who are working in worker cooperatives. So you're going to get to hear from them. So all these questions of how the heck do you get along, you can ask those same questions at the next panel. So raise your hands quickly when it comes up. And thank you very much, Omar. Thank you very much, Karen. Thank you very much, Emma. So we're going to reconvene at 12:10, which isn't even quite 10 minutes. So rush. Thank you.